This is one of 13 unreleased songs from Minecraft's lost third album, produced by the legendary C418, a composer who had one goal: to contribute an everlasting memory to millions of people. The same man who was turned away from Microsoft and robbed of what could have been the best album ever produced in gaming history. And once you hear the true reason behind it, you'll never want to touch Minecraft again.
Minecraft is a simple game. You're put in a bare-bones world where the only limit is your imagination. But whether you build a dirt house or a mega structure, there was always still a sense of accomplishment when you played the game. C418 knew that he had to tap into this, while somehow making the music bearable to hear on repeat. He needed music that could really resonate with the vast emotions and feelings the game attempted to deliver. With a game with infinite possibilities and scenarios, it seems as though he would be faced with a near impossible task. C418 was given full creative control over the game's original soundtrack, and within a few weeks, C418 came up with what he believed at this time was his magnum opus. The songs named Calm 1, Calm 2, and Calm 3. 3 songs with a simple melody and little to no instruments other than a soothing muted piano. It was perfect. In fact, these melodies would end up becoming some of the most recognizable aspects of Minecraft itself. These songs would be named Minecraft, Clark, and the world-renowned Sweden. It was something about the classic 7 chords put in throughout its music which ties these songs into one connected piece, complementing each other by its lack of percussion, leading to what would be a softer tone. The only forceful thing in the music itself is the soothing synths, which again just maintain the momentum of the music and add a light sound to the piano. No other game or even artist have been able to replicate such a feeling as close as C418 up to this point in gaming, making his music distinguished and recognizable. Every single biome had been given their own songs and unique soundtrack to paint an atmosphere that could leave a massive impact on millions of players' lives. These songs put players in this nostalgic place, filled with memories of every other time the music has played during their experiences of the game. Each note holding a choice made while playing Minecraft itself. It gives each song of C418 life. A personal attachment. Notch understood that the soundtrack had become Minecraft's staple in sales, so as a result, he knew he needed to make something special, something that would allow the players to choose what songs and emotions they wanted to feel. So, in version Alpha 1.0.14, Minecraft would release the newest feature to the game: music discs. The idea and concept being created by C418 himself. They even implemented these discs into the tutorials of Minecraft, symbolizing the importance of the music in Minecraft itself and making them a key element of the game to this day. With a new set of music discs arriving would also come a new Minecraft original soundtrack, evolving from Project Alpha to Project Beta. But with a unique sound differentiating it from the first album, the original soundtrack would reach what most believed was its peak. This caused an expectation for each song in the game's original soundtrack, an expectation C418 set that no other artist could match. The promise of emitting an emotion that had the ability to hold memories. Every artist needs to prove that they can put feelings in their own songs, without forcefully implying what emotions should be played, but rather allowing the players themselves to put meaning behind the music. So, when a game run by a now fallen company was expected to replicate the success of C418 in their own story of Minecraft, they had to do the impossible.
Minecraft Story Mode became the next big step in Minecraft's creative journey. They wanted to become more than just a sandbox, and so they stepped into the world of interactive storytelling, partnering up with Telltale to create Minecraft Story Mode. While not a particularly good game looking back, the game was the next step in Minecraft's journey. If there is one thing that Telltale has done well throughout their lifespan, it's have really good music. Games like Telltale's The Walking Dead, Tales from the Borderlands, The Wolf Among Us, all of these games have exceptional and emotional music that helps to guide the story. No one could catch captured this feeling in a game more than C418, and yet he was nowhere to be found. Mojang had seemingly cut him out of the process. These forgotten symphonies from C418 could have been perfect for the game, but instead they brought in fresh faces, trying to switch up a formula that had been proven to work since C418's first ever song was added to the game. And Timo and Wells were the new faces for the music behind this emotionally driven storytelling masterpiece, and they dropped the ball. Songs like Ivor's theme being so close, but then feeling the need to descend into something that was, by most means, a little bit too much. The simplicity behind Minecraft's music allowed players to immerse themselves into this world they were creating without being distracted by the music, but the work of Antimo and Wells kind of ruined that. You could never fully invest your full focus into the game, as the music just constantly pulled you out of it. Imagine Ivor's theme without the sudden climb in tone and beat, and then you could have had this exceptional symphony that still lets you enjoy the story. However, Antimo and Wells had overdone it, and this was not only exclusive to Ivor's theme. Tracks like Pale Blue Dot, Stone by Stone, even the most recognizable song from Minecraft Story Mode, its title theme, ruined what could have been a harmonic symphony that, unfortunately, had a lackluster conclusion. Minecraft Story Mode was meant to be the beginning of countless spin-offs, and became the first failure by Microsoft in an attempt to replace C418. It would be years before Minecraft would look at doing Minecraft Dungeons. Mojang and Microsoft had turned their back on C418, and the player base were massively noticing this. The soundtrack felt too much like a generic Telltale game, and not enough like a Minecraft game. When you listen to every other Telltale game's soundtrack, it fits flawlessly, but with Minecraft it felt incredibly hollow. There is no emotion to anything that had been made for Minecraft Story Mode. Listen to the ending of the first Telltale The Walking Dead game, and in it you'll hear a song called Goodbye. This is an example of Telltale generally being brilliant at composing music for their games. However, there is not one song in Minecraft Story Mode that is even remotely comparable to any of the songs from Telltale's The Walking Dead. The songs feel too Telltale and not enough Minecraft. The soundtrack just wasn't that good, and people did miss C418. Mojang noticed this, and as such they went into damage control, and Timo and Wells would never produce another soundtrack for a Minecraft game ever again, and instead we would see entirely new people coming into the scene. But would these brand new composers live up to the standard that was set by C418?
Before this chapter starts, I'd like to mention this is the very first long-form upload I've ever made on this channel, so it'd mean a lot if you could subscribe. It's completely free and you can change your mind whenever.
Minecraft, at its core, is a game based off simplicity, which, to most people, is reflected through its use of music. But by the time of the Aquatic update, C418 had only produced 3 more songs for the soundtrack, and, as unfortunate as it was, these songs would mark the end of C418 in Minecraft's story, as a new upcoming artist would enter the scene with a new mentality for the game. But what was strangest of it all was the timing of this occurrence. Since Microsoft's acquisition of Minecraft, they hadn't communicated much with the community about the future of the game, leading to speculations of the future. But one thing at this point was for certain: a large change was about to take place. Meet Lena Raine, a Canadian composer and musician mostly known for her work in games like Celeste, where her music would play a significant role in enhancing the overall atmosphere and emotional impact of the game. A description that felt awfully reminiscent of C418, in which Lena, by this logic, would become C418's newest opponent. But unfortunately for him, he would meet what most people believed was his replacement. Lena Raine was also now given full creative control over a new music disc, which would go on to be named Pigstep, a song that didn't follow the usual format of music we had come to love from the game. This sudden change to the game's soundtrack would be hated by a large amount of the community. In their eyes, Minecraft was beginning to shift from this simple block game to this multi-billion-dollar brand. But Lena Raine got one thing wrong. Minecraft's music has always stood as an ambient sound, rather than its own independent being, something that to this point in gaming had not been replicated. Although this new track was met with a lot of praise, it was also met with a lot of critics, who'd go on to state that it was just too different, a comparison that, to be unbiased, was fairly accurate. But just as things seemed to be looking worse for C418, it only kept on getting worse and worse, as another music disc would be added shortly after, titled 5, a track produced by a musician named Samuel Albo, a music disc that only had one core purpose, which would be to add lore to the game. By this point, it was looking like a new dawn for Minecraft, where new composers were getting a shot in the limelight. But yet, these composers could never really hit the same spot that C418 once hit. C418 stated that he had something he considered finished, but things had become complicated, especially since Minecraft is now a big property. After this quote was released, things began to become more dicey on and off camera. But behind this mask of new producers lay a hidden Minecraft album, an album that was supposed to be, to most people, a new age for Minecraft. An album that had been solely produced and composed by C418 himself. This album, to this date, has never been released to the public, and the possibility of this appearing at the time was slim to none. And at the time, the question rolling through everyone's mind was, why didn't C418 just release a third album? What is the future of Minecraft's soundtrack? And why is C418 gatekeeping to what most people believed was his best piece of work yet? The community split into two sections: pro-change and pro-nostalgia. Pro-change stood for the game to introduce new musicians and composers, who would include members like Lena Raine having more permanent job in the game. Then, on the pro-nostalgia side, there would be an argument that without C418, there wouldn't be Minecraft in the first place, and that his third album would be a solution to Minecraft's drought. To either side, there would be no compromise, but little did they know that their petty arguments would be pointless. And to them, you either stayed with C418 and anticipated his third album, or you let it die, with new producers completely stealing his thunder and permanently erasing his future impact.
Minecraft's notorious third album was intended to be the staple of Minecraft's future, shifting the game in an unexpected new direction. And although we to this date have never seen this album, there are still small pieces of it in existence. C418 had stated that there would be 3 aquatic songs titled Dragonfish, Shunji, and Axolotl, 3 songs that fit the ambiance of Projects Alpha and Beta. But these would also mark the very end of anything C418 would create for the main game. But little did everyone realize that there would be 4 more hidden tracks in Minecraft's old console code. 4 songs titled Battle Mode 1, Battle Mode 2, Battle Mode 3, and you guessed it, Battle Mode 4. 4 tracks that seemed out of place compared to his other music. You see, Minecraft's console edition would present a new section to the game, minigames. And for this new category, a new soundtrack would need to follow. A soundtrack which had largely been composed by C418 himself. But behind the scenes, there was an immense pressure put on him, as Mojang had requested an entire album to be produced in a time frame shorter than anything he'd seen so far. This is what the gaming industry refers to as crunch, something that C418 was strongly against up until this point in his career. He would go on to state in an interview with Anthony Fantano that there was another music producer in the shadows that would go on to produce the rest of the minigame's soundtrack, who would go by the name of Gareth Coker, a producer who would later become world-renowned for soundtracks like Ori and the Blind Forest, as well as the entire soundtrack for Ark Survival Evolved. He produced music that felt eerily similar to that of C418, if not almost identical. The features of Gareth Coker's music, like its ambient soundtrack, were almost indistinguishable to that of C418. To Mojang, they had found what they believed was their newest copycat replacement. The minigame section would not only feature a game mode called Battle, but alongside this would also come other game modes like Tumble and Glide. But these would feature somewhat of an interesting change compared to the Battle game mode itself: its soundtrack. Gone were the hints of ambience that were created by C418, and now they would be replaced by an upbeat melody that was atypical of what they had seen up to this point in the game. Not only this, but the instrumentation and themes were almost non-existent representations of what C418 had created. It was too different. You see, by this point, C418 had slowly stepped out of the Minecraft music industry as the game itself began to shift from the former shell it used to exist within. Minecraft was simply too different, and the soundtrack was no longer Minecraft. And with a complete takeover by Microsoft, it also marked the beginning of changes internally within the company. Changes that would change the game forever. Not only this, but we began to see Lena Raine and newer composers becoming more frequently seen in the Minecraft sphere. And with the upcoming 1.19 update would also come a new soundtrack, introducing a new set of songs that would sound somewhat different from the original soundtrack. This marked the true end of Minecraft's involvement with C418. 1.19 would introduce a new style to the game's original soundtrack, as we would see Wending become a prime example of the music completely shifting to a new style. Rather than it being the ambient music it once was, it was instead shifting to fit a theme for an update. Songs like Other Side made players feel a sense of comfort, but also strayed too far from the ambient soundtrack it once was, and rather attempted to deliver on the theme of the update: exploration. Everything was just wrong, but realistically, could it get any worse?
Minecraft's licensing has always been somewhat of a confusing topic in the Minecraft community, but there's always been one important question that was always overlooked by the public. Who owns Minecraft's music? Project Alpha and Project Beta were both albums produced solely by C418, in which were both developed at the exact same time as Minecraft was. Agreements were made during this time period that were simple as this. Notch would still have ownership over his game, but C418 in turn would also have ownership over his music. You see, Mojang, once it was in early development, was only consisting of a few key members, names involved being Notch, Jeb, Miso, and Test Fan. But alongside this small roster would come a young C418. Him and Notch had worked alongside each other on the small indie project known as Minecraft, in hopes of creating something special. But in turn, this meant that Mojang had made one vital mistake with the rights to their music for their game: their contracts. Up to this point in the development, C418 had been hired under Mojang as a commission, rather than working directly for them to produce their music. And this one flaw in Minecraft's plan would be a thorn in their foot forever, as later down the line, things would become more complicated as a result of it. C418 worked directly with Notch and the other developers to create something that was unique to their game, that would eventually turn into what they believed was the staple point of Minecraft. Every biome would have its own exclusive track to fit the ambience, something that after C418's departure was not replicated. You may have noticed by this point throughout the entire documentary you've just watched that we continuously mentioned the word replacement. This is because by the end of 2016 we had come to learn that C418 had officially been replaced by a continuous rotation of new independent artists. This would be for a reason far more complicated than ever expected. Up to this point, under every C418 track produced for Minecraft, it would always feature its own ownership licensing information, and it would always contain the name C418. But newer artists like Lena Rain and an upcoming artist titled Kumi Tiyonaka would feature interesting descriptions to their music on YouTube and Spotify. They had sold their work to Microsoft, which meant that Microsoft's newest soundtrack would be owned by Microsoft themselves. This concept isn't something out of the ordinary in the video game soundtrack industry, where artists would sell the rights to their soundtracks to larger companies. This process would eventually lead artists to receive subsequent payments in exchange for this though. But realistically, it wouldn't make any sense. Why replace C418 when you could simply just purchase his music? Well, it would come out later that C418 had been approached by Microsoft privately, but according to C418, they couldn't strike a deal. So instead, it seemed like Microsoft needed to find a replacement. But why? Well, since the beginning of Minecraft, they had been licensing his music, rather than buying the rights to it. This original plan worked out better for both parties, as a young C418 with no portfolio would be able to withhold the rights to his first OST, whilst a not-so-liquid Notch would be able to continue to create his game without the necessary resources to create it. But after Microsoft's acquisition, it would end in a greedy company wanting to own everything, rather than keeping things the way it was. Mojang's internal runnings were killing its game, where Minecraft felt a new responsibility, where they had to find a replacement, someone to fill the gap set by C418, which realistically would be impossible to do. But the question everyone was asking is, will we ever get this third album? To this date, there has been implications that eventually we will see the third forgotten album, just not in the format we had intended. C418 has stated that his lost third album will most likely be released to the public in the foreseeable future, but sadly not in the game we had hoped, and rather being uploaded to music streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple. We've also been able to record 7 of these supposed tracks from this album, those being the Aquatic Update tracks as well as the 4 battle mode tracks from Minecraft's minigame soundtrack, but the release date for this album is very distant from now. as C418 has moved on to bigger project with new teams, as his new team called Ivy Roads has something in the works. So what now? Well, unfortunately we'll never see this album due to the greed of Microsoft, as well as this continuous cycle of new artists. But hey, thank you guys so much for watching this documentary. It's taken me well over 200 hours to make this at the least. Also, thank you to everyone who narrated in this video. It means a lot and you are really appreciated.